There is no such thing as over communication. When timelines or deadlines are not clearly defined, you lose that sense of urgency and focus needed to get something done. It's not that we do not trust our colleagues or our team, but it is really about accepting the reality that humans as we are, we make mistakes and we make errors. Welcome back to the Law Ravina podcast. In this episode, I am going to share with you three simple but profound mindsets I have learned in my years in the corporate world. Now, these mindsets were reinforced early in my career as a supervisor and during my time with the CEO Insights Asia ecosystem. So let me also give a huge shout out to Sir Fa, Mr. Florentino A. Hernando, the Executive Advisor and Managing Director of FA Hernando Executive Advisory, because he has taught me these principles, and these principles really guided my journey as a corporate leader from being a reactive leader to being a proactive, strategic, and intentional leader. So, Serfa, I will always and forever be grateful to you. And I am confident that you, my dear listeners, these principles or mindsets will transform how you lead your teams, your projects, your relationships, and even your life. So, without any further delay, let's dive right into it. Starting with mindset number one. If it is not documented, it does not exist. I am not sure if you have worked with someone and then reached a verbal agreement only to find that they have completely forgotten about the agreement. If you did experience that, then I tell you, you are not alone. And I know that it can be a very frustrating experience because I have experienced the same thing early in my career. I remember navigating this very complex process, and so I had an informal meeting with a colleague from another team. And then in that meeting, we kind of dissected the procedures and the policies and the processes involved in a particular process that we have. And then we reached a verbal agreement. Now, the following day, I immediately implemented what we had agreed. Then, suddenly, they told me that they actually forgot or they could not remember what we had agreed yesterday, or like the day when we had the meeting. And it was really, really frustrating for me because I felt, number one, betrayed. And number two, I was so disappointed, not in them, but to myself, because I failed to actually record or document what we just talked about in that informal meeting. And so that experience taught me this principle: if it is not documented, it does not exist. And you see, it's not that we do not trust our colleagues or our team, but it is really about accepting the reality that humans as we are, we make mistakes and we make errors. We forget things sometimes, or even we remember the wrong things or miss out on the most important things in a conversation, for example, or in a meeting. And at the same time, documentation or putting everything into writing actually protects our relationship with our team, and at the same time protects our relationship with other people in the business or in the company. Also, documentation or putting everything into writing adds three layers of value, which are clarity, accountability, and credibility. So, first is clarity. Documentation actually allows your team to understand expectations because they have this single source of truth. They have this document that they can always go back to when things get a bit hectic or things get a little bit messy. And so they have this reference that they can look at, and then all of the necessary information are found in that single source of truth. So again, it creates clarity. Second is documentation creates accountability. You see, when policies, processes, and even decisions are documented, you can actually quickly identify the gaps and even misalign expectations. So this makes giving and receiving feedback much more direct because you can compare actual behavior against the written record. And then lastly, of course, is credibility. I am not sure if you know this, but there is an immense power in the process of writing because the person doing the writing or doing the act of documentation has gone through a rigorous process of thinking. When you actually write or document something, you will think about pros and cons. You will think about risks and problems and mitigation plans and solutions. You can think about the what ifs. And so, because of that, you're going through that very rigorous thought process. And so, that again gives a layer of credibility to a decision or even to an idea or even to an agreement. So, I want you and I challenge you to actually apply this in your life as well, either at work or even in your personal life. So you can use a project management tool, you can also use a shared document or even send an email recapping what was discussed and the key decisions made during a meeting. In our company, we use a master file. And in this master file, it contains all the necessary information and relevant decisions or relevant resources or references that our team can use in executing or implementing a decision or, let's say, an idea or a project. Now, in your personal life, you can also do this as well. Let's say you have a goal or a plan, then I challenge you to write it down. Because when an abstract idea is written, you're actually making it into something tangible that you can feel, you can see, and you can touch, and you can smell. Okay? And so that is turning this idea that's in your head into a tangible reality. Now, the second mindset number two is if there is no timeline, it will never happen. I am not sure if you have worked with people who use phrases like soon, someday, next week, sometime. Like they tell you, yes, I'll get it done, or yes, I'll give you an update, or I will submit this next week, or I'll submit this soon, or someday. Okay? I mean, I really hate those words because these words create ambiguity and it sets everyone up for failure. You see, when timelines or deadlines are not clearly defined, you lose that sense of urgency and focus needed to get something done. Now, I remember early in my career as a supervisor, I was working with a Japanese stakeholder. And I'm not quite sure if you know this, but Japanese, like in terms of their work ethics, they're really very particular about time and punctuality and deadlines. And so I had this meeting with a Japanese stakeholder, and we were talking about me submitting an update or report to him. And so he asked me, okay, so when can you submit this report? And I just immediately told him, I'll submit it next week. And he was like, next week, like when exactly and what time? And I was actually not expecting that kind of question during that meeting because I was just thinking, yeah, I'll submit it sometime. But like when he asked that question, it actually like made me open my calendar and then look at all of my commitments, look at all of my deliverables and things expected from me. And then it made me quickly reorganize everything. Then after like a few seconds or like a minute, almost a minute, I then told him, okay, I will submit this report by Friday at 5 p.m. And then he just said, okay, Friday next week, 5 p.m. And then we ended the meeting. Now, that conversation had a very powerful effect in me because it allowed me to take ownership onto the deliverable or to the task because I was the one who defined the timeline and said, okay, I will be submitting that Friday, 5 p.m. And so, like, I had to check and then I had to like put that in my to-do list and then my the things that I need to get done by next week. And this is the kind of accountability and focus that clear timelines create. That is also the very reason why In our company, we use a very specific formula when we delegate tasks or when we assign to do's to our team. And we call it the VNT formula: verb, number and noun, timeline. So instead of just saying submit a report, which can be ambiguous, right? Because it creates a lot of back and forth in communication if you just say submit a report. And then your team will ask, what kind of report do you want me to submit? When do you need it? And how many reports should I submit? So instead of like those kinds of unnecessary back and forth in the communication, then we follow the VNT formula. So we say submit one report about the feedback by Friday, September 26th at 5 p.m. And so using that formula creates a very clear statement and very clear expectations because it already answers all the necessary questions. What do I need to do? Submit a report. What do you need me to submit? A report about the feedback. By when do you need it? Friday, September 26th, 5 p.m. And so because it's already complete, then you kind of lessen any unnecessary back and forth in communication, and your team can just focus on executing or making it happen. And so I challenge you to apply this not only, of course, at work, but even in your personal life. So again, this is applicable in all aspects of your life. If you have a goal, you give it a deadline. Because creating clear timelines, giving it a very specific deadline, makes an idea into a concrete, actionable plan. Because there is already an ending. Like, there's already that deadline that you establish. And so, doing so at the same time allows your team to have that sense of urgency, focus, and even accountability in making sure that they really get it done, even on or before the deadline. And so, creating clear timelines is very, very important in corporate and even when you're working with other people and even with yourself as well. And now we go to mindset number 3. If something is important, it must be repeated. If something is important, it must be repeated. I am not sure if you have actually stopped and thought about why, when we were still like in school, we were always asked to sing the national anthem and recite our patriotic oath or the Panatang Makabayan almost every single day. Okay? And actually, the answer is very simple: repetition. And that constant repetition creates retention. Okay, even up to this day, I know the Lupang Hinirang, our national anthem, and I can still even recite our Panatang Makabayan. You see? So what I'm trying to say here is that if you want your team to remember what is important, then you have to constantly repeat it. You have to constantly share that message every single time in every conversation that you have with your team and in every available platforms that you have at work as well. Okay? For me, actually, I do not believe in over communication. Like, there is no such thing as over communication. As leaders, we need to constantly and consistently share what is important, especially for the team or for the business, and what truly matters. Because in a very noisy world, for a message to truly land, you have to repeat it time and time and time again. Okay? In my many years of working with various teams, I realized that people actually need more reminding than instructing. Okay? You see, people genuinely wants to contribute, wants to create value. People want to make things happen to fulfill their responsibilities. And so over time, I realized that the gap really is not in not knowing what to do, but the gap is in not knowing what is truly important. And so I challenge you to always communicate what is important for your team and repeat it again and again. Okay, do not shy away from communicating what truly matters for the organization or for the business or for your team. Leaders must really take advantage and utilize all available resources, platforms, channels, methods of communication to relay to the team what is important. So that includes the company or the organization's mission, vision, the goals, the purpose, the strategy, and even communicating the contribution that your team creates for the organization. And again, this is very, very much applicable in all aspects of your life, both at work and in your personal life as well. Let's say, for example, you value kindness and honesty, then you have to consistently and constantly talk about it and show it in action through action, kindness and honesty. So, whether you're talking with your workmates or your team or your family or with your circle of friends, then you have to show that to them and you have to communicate that clearly to them that you value kindness and honesty. Again, for something important to truly land and to really for people to receive it, then you have to always give it in any possible ways or in any available resources and channels that you have. So, there you have it, the three mindsets. If it is not documented, it does not exist. If there is no timeline, it will never happen. And if something is important, it must be repeated. These mindsets or principles have guided me in my decision making and how I operate as a corporate leader. And I also constantly share this with my team because it has incredibly helped us improve our relationship, the way that we work together, the way that we work with each other, and even our overall performance as well. And so, my challenge to you, my dear listeners, is to apply the same mindsets or principles into your team or organization as well. Share this podcast with them and even discuss and agree with your team about the mindsets or frameworks that you will be applying so you can become better in how you operate. And of course, you can create real value that really impacts not only the business and the clients, but even impacts the lives of the people that you are working with. So I hope that this is very, very helpful for you. And make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. And until next time, let us keep showing up, speaking up, and leading boldly.